Hey everyone, we're going to do something a little different today because I have Microsoft Paint open. We will hop into TF2 for a bit, but it's going to be very hands-on, which is, I guess, more similar to some of my oldest videos. So throwback to that. But something that I notice basically every new demo struggles with is there's always symptoms and there's always different examples. But a lot of the time there's kind of a root cause, or at least one thing that can help alleviate many different issues. And that's the sort of technique or tendency we're going to talk about today. And that kind of explains the title, talking about the oneness of demo, because a lot of these smaller issues can kind of tie together. But anyway, I have 3 sections here, which is I just outlined 3 basic problems that I see new demos make. So in the first one here, let us put positioning. Positioning equals bad. You have bad positioning, right? Very straightforward. This is usually standing somewhere that gets you killed. Standing too close is a very common trend, kind of just walking at people. Right. And then in the middle section here, we'll do ammo consumption, which is how effectively are you actually using your ammo, because that's not always as effective, right? And in fact, well, I'll explain more, I guess, in the actual things. And then here's going to be ammo management. I can spell. Okay, so what do these mean? So positioning is bad is a very simple one. Let us go here. I'm not very artistic, so don't worry about this. But we have a capture point here with a little icon, right? And you have some nice high ground here. So rather than the demo standing up here, it's going to be our little Demoman. Give him an eye patch. It's our Demoman. So rather than standing up here, where you can shoot down onto the point, and players on the point can't easily shoot up at you, or at least their splash doesn't really hit you, right? Make that orange and splash damage, just because. Rather than doing that, maybe you jump off and are trying to play closer, play on the low ground, somewhere that's a lot less convenient, a lot less safe, and just not great in general. Or if it's just generic positioning, let's do a quick little sketch here of, let's say, process second. So this would be place up to the point. This is the staircase, right? It's not a horrible rendition, actually. The perspective's a little off. This is that chain link fence, right? You have choke over here. Say this is choke, and then like the pipe goes up there, right. And then all the, wow, this is actually better than I expected it would turn out to be. Okay, so we have process 2 here, and there's more, who cares? When you're trying to hold choke here, make that red, it's important to hold that. A lot of demos will be positioned like here in the low ground because it's really accessible, it's really close. But then you're just a huge target compared to being here. You are much less of a target. You have like cover in the fence here. You actually have room to kite back to even more high ground if you need to. There's not just like a little choke point cutting you off here. Plus you're just physically harder to hit because you're further away. So having bad positioning will get you killed, and it's obviously not great. Right, so ammo consumption, we're just gonna talk about how effectively you're using your ammo when you're using it. And this is more so, well, I'll just draw a quick little emoji here to kind of illustrate my point. I'm not like super familiar with paint, so I'm gonna do, oh, that's very thin. Let's go with a thicker brush. And then it's already like a decent color, right? Oops. Because that's supposed to be color 1. Have any of you seen this emoji before? With the vomit? We'll even throw in like the specs. So this is what I mean, where you're just vomiting out ammo without much thought about what is going on. Which isn't to say that you never need to like shoot things quickly and get a lot of ammo out there to deal a lot of damage quickly. But there are certainly going to be times, well, a lot of the time you want that ammo to be meaningful, right? And sometimes you're just vomiting and spewing out sticks without much thought or consideration as to what they're doing. And then you run out of ammo, and then you're useless, and then you die. Or at least, even if you don't die, like you have to leave, the situation turns bad because, 5 seconds later, something else happens that's like very easy for you to shoot at as a demo, and like create an opportunity for your team, but you use all your ammo instantly earlier, so you have nothing loaded. And this kind of ties into ammo management, but this is more so, let's just draw a 5 out of 8 here, just because 8 being the total ammo count, and like how low your stickies are actually going. You get that 3 out of 8. Things are a little sketchy. When you're at 0 out of 8, like, you are useless, right? You can reload one sticky and shoot it, and that's it. And then you can reload another sticky and shoot it. So the idea is finding times to reload when your ammo looks more like this rather than like this, and especially not like this. Because if your ammo is like this, then you literally have to reload to do anything. But let's say it's a mid-fight, right? And a team's about to bomb. You don't know they're about to bomb, but let's say that their demo pipes your med, right? Which is like enough damage, more than enough damage for them to bomb off of, so their soldiers just decide to double bomb right then and there. Sure. If that happens when you're at 0 stickies, you're going to get run over by the other team walking forward, because when soldiers bomb on mid, teams like to walk forward with those bombs. If you have 3 stickies loaded, you can actually like put up a defense, which is good. If you have 5 loaded, like, you're fine. You can basically treat it like any other situation. So point being, you want to stay more in this range, and it's important to manage your... I want to make sure that's not... oh, it is getting cut off, huh? Yeah, the thing is cropped, but down here is a little 0 out of 8. If you couldn't see. So, yeah, you want to make sure that you have ammo loaded for when you need it, and that means finding... We'll actually put this in text here because it's important. We'll put it in red text because it's that important. Reload intervals. You want to find time to actually reload during a fight, because there will, especially in those team fights, those mid fights, those last pushes, especially those last Ubers, there will always, always, always be something you could shoot a sticky at. And 80% of the time, there's going to be something you can shoot a sticky at that will do immediate damage right then and there. And being able to say, yes, I could do 40 damage to this player right here, right now, but it's more important for me to have 3 stickies in a few seconds, that will absolutely make the difference in your effectiveness in those fights. So here we are in TF2, and I'm going to talk about, or at least like look at some of those examples of the things that I was mentioning just a moment ago, and what that might look like. So we can actually go over to process 2 here and talk about that sort of positioning thing. So, right, choke is right there, and if I want to hold choke and I'm a new demo, a lot of the time I'm going to be here, because this is just like a very comfy place to just shoot these stickies. They're landing basically where I want them to, in choke, dealing damage to players trying to pressure choke. It's all good. However, if I'm like on the other team, and I'm like peeking choke here, that's a demo that's very easy to get damage on without like even really peeking the point and exposing myself to much spam. Or if I'm pressuring sewer, which is a really common door to pressure, like there's just a player there. I, as a demo, can just be raining hell on them very easily, but also like 2 stickies there and that guy's dead, because your soldier can just bomb this demo. He has no way to get back without getting completely annihilated, right? So this type of positioning, while it's very accessible to these doors and it's very easy to deal damage in these doors, it's also so vulnerable that the damage trades that you're getting is not that favorable compared to a position like this, where it's a lot harder to punish that kind of demo. Yes, I can land damage on them, but they can kite that off. They can get healed from their med, who's probably standing around here, who can just be beaming them. They can kite that aggression further back. They have all this room to work with, and they aren't like bottlenecked by something like this, where now they're stuck in no man's land on the low ground and are just a free kill, right? So yeah, that is an example of that kind of positioning. Let's go over to last as well for another such example. So let's say we're pushing last. Actually, no, we can do holding last. Heaven is a very common place to be standing, and yeah, from here, you're pretty hard to get to, right? The doors are all really far away. I mean, there's a reason why Ubers, or why combos will play up here to avoid Ubers that are gonna get popped through doors like 3 or 4. And you have room to kite around, kite to whatever side you want. But point being, like, a lot of the time you're going to be on a side for that post Uber. And you as the demo want to be in charge of the point. Now, it's so much easier. Well, okay, first things first. From a position like this, you will do more damage on point. Your stickies reach the point faster. And yes, like that is, if you are singularly focused on doing as much damage to the players on point that moment without any concern for what happens afterwards, then yeah, that makes sense. But in the context of like a last hold in general, playing a position where you can still be shooting at the point and trapping, look at that, I got every like corner, all the difficult stuff to hit with just completely uncharged stickies. Kind of burying the lead there a little bit, but we'll get there. And yeah, it's very, very easy while also being safe. So there is a small trade-off in that these stickies are going to have slightly more damage fall off because they're further away. Not a big deal. And they take slightly longer to get to the point, which again, not a big deal. Like you can see, you can be paying attention to in your peripheral vision if a scout is clearing those sticks or trying to cap and, you know, have that sticky. Landing, by the time they're going to commit to the point, hit them with a bunch of damage. It's all good. So yeah, positioning. Positioning is important. High ground, obviously, very important. Things like that. What was the next thing we were talking about? The ammo consumption. So yeah, you want your ammo use to be efficient, right? You want it to be effective, number one, but you want it to be efficient after that. And what I mean by that is I see a lot of demos will, let's say the other team's pressuring this choke point, and they're just going to start like shooting everything they can as fast as they can without much consideration for what's going on. And honestly, all those stickies like landed in pretty effective places, but it might just be like you think they're going to walk forward and then you see that they're further back, and like you're just using a bunch of ammo without that much benefit. And the reason why that would ever be bad is because you can get the same amount of damage or the same effect with less ammo. So if you can take the time to actually aim your shots better and do the same amount of damage or the same like deterrence, I guess, with 2 or 3 stickies compared to 5 or 6, then obviously that's just better, right? Yeah, very simple one there. The ammo consumption is a big concern there. And then, of course, the ammo management, definitely a difficult skill to get used to as a demo, but just finding those times to reload is quite nice. Practice makes things easier. Let's actually just do a quick little rollout and then fake mid-fight to kind of demonstrate when I would find a reload interval, I guess. So we're just going to do normal rollout. I missed it, whatever. Nowadays, I like shooting my first stick and choke sometimes, rather than trying to hit the demo, but whatever. We shoot our first stick wherever. And I'm already charging another sticky. Maybe I shoot that at the demo. Maybe I expect the scouts to start being on height there. And I was down to 4 stickies there, right? So I could maybe drop down, try and peek across point. Maybe try and hit their demo or something. Oh, and now if they're bombing right now, I lost the mid because I have no stickies here. Versus, same deal. We'll go to 4 stickies. I had just shot the stickies up there. Instead, what if I just rotate over here? Okay, now I'm at 7. I can start shooting again. Maybe I want to deny height. Use a bunch of ammo there. Okay, now I reload again. There's a guy there that I can shoot at and hit But it's more important for me to have 6, 7, 8 stickies for if an even better opportunity presents itself, rather than focus on each and every little drip of damage that I can possibly get when I can possibly get it, right? I hope that makes sense. I know there's no actual enemies on my screen, but the more mid-fights you play, the more of these sort of standard situations you play with your team, the more you'll be able to recognize those relative lulls in the combat when you can find a time to maybe reposition while reloading, or just reload a couple stickies to top yourself off, or just have them for when you expect more action to happen in the future, in anticipation, right? So yeah, those are kind of the 3 big mistakes I see being made. And a little ramp slide there. And now I want to talk about the technique, the one thing that I have been kind of leading up to at this point that ties everything together, in my opinion. And this was a sort of realization I didn't really make the connection of until quite recently. And that is how you actually like aim and shoot your stickies. It does a lot to alleviate all these things. It's not going to fix every problem, but it goes a long way. And let us use, we can just use mid here as our example. So a lot of demos will shoot their stickies like this, right? That's fine, sure. I am decently committed, right? Somewhat far forward. If a player like is able to peek over height, a scout could like chip me for 50. Just like a fair amount of damage for a scout on height from this like not very committed position to hit me for, which, I mean, there's going to be times where that can be worth it. But the stickies also aren't landing that deep. They're like landing here against a demo that's also pretty committed. Now, if I go into that exact same position and I do one thing, which is just aim my stickies further up, right? Still uncharged. Then suddenly you're going to see that rather than landing here, they're landing a little further. And then if I do an extra thing as well, which is just barely charge my stickies, I'm actually going to do some slight editing here, right? You can see that charge meter. Like, I'm talking barely charging these. It's like really not that much slower than just uncharged stickies, but just barely anything, plus that flick. And you can see that meter is like not going that high. Suddenly I'm landing stickies where like players are actually, more players are going to be like standing back here. Process mid is quite large actually, so you need like a little bit more charge. That was like, you know, twice as much charge of what was already like barely any, right? So it's still like pretty quick. And that's landing in the grass from this position. So we imagine if I'm standing all the way over there, it's going to land like further back by the wall. So you can hit really anything really quickly just by combining that little flick up or shooting kind of higher with a tiny bit of charge. And getting the habit of charging stickies can be quite nice. And this is not something like I came up with or anything like that. This is something I learned when I first started playing sixes, because Habib was talking about it in an old video of his, which I think he said was going to be a series, and then it didn't end up being a series. But yeah, I'm sure I'll link that. But anyway, yeah, that's it, right? So now we're just going to talk about how it ties stuff together. Because just a little bit of charge, we'll just play like a very safe position. A little bit of charge, boom, I'm hitting a player on that height. A little bit of charge, actually more like a lot of a charge and a flick, and boom, I can be hitting a scout on that rock. All from this position, which like these guys can't do anything about that. So if you know the map, for example, you know that players like to stand here. Like a scout likes to stand here, where they're not really that seen, but can take fights on the height. They can spot the right side and maybe get aggressive if they want to. You know that's like a tendency players have. Well, from complete safety, like from here, I'm so comfortable dodging any and all spam, unless like their demo, unless their team is trying to collapse. Like this is super, super like safe. From here, boom, I can hit that player. That was a little bit flaccid, but I can hit that guy without even knowing if he's there or not. And just during a mid, I'm like, you know what? I just want to kind of shoot that spot. Oh, I hit someone up there. Okay, scout's tagged on height. Boom. Something like that. Very, very easy, very straightforward. Yeah. So let's talk about how this ties into those 3 tendencies I was talking about earlier. And we're going to begin with the bad positioning. So, I think that one of the reasons why demos, and we'll go to process second here, because I think this is a good example. So, the reason why I think a lot of demos struggle with this is because if they're still stuck shooting those flaccid stickies without any sauce, because they're not like flicking them or not giving them any charge, then it's like a lot less effective, right? Your range is a lot less effective. And a player peeking the choke here is totally safe, right? So you're just not able to do anything to them unless you're actually, you know, arcing those stickies and applying a little bit of charge, right? And then suddenly every door is a lot easier to hold. And because you feel less effective from this type of positioning, demos kind of gravitate naturally towards that uncharged sticky length. And that is not safe a lot of the time. Obviously on process 2, it's an example. Let's imagine we're pressuring process 2. Like, if I were only focused on being able to hit uncharged stickies, then I would have to like commit all the way out here to like be landing damage on players on side spire there. Versus a little bit of charge and a flick, and then just hitting guys. That's like more of a charge. For stuff like this, it's definitely like a lot of charge. But if we're thinking like, process is actually quite large in these even Ubers situations. So you are charging more in process than some other maps. But point being, it's like I'm not full charging this at all. It's like still quite quick. Right. And also like if players are actually trying to get through the choke, then like, yeah, you barely have to charge that at all, or just leave it uncharged completely. Right. So by being able to still deal that effective damage from the good positioning, I think it lets you focus more on having that good positioning, because it's no longer about, I notice when I'm here, I don't do damage, but when I'm here, I do a lot of damage. And so you just tend to gravitate towards the place you do damage. When you're able to deal damage from here, then you can kind of weigh them more fairly and actually think about what your positioning's like. And that's when you're going to gravitate more towards positions like this, or nice high ground positioning when you're playing high ground like this, or especially in the case of last points, less so a example on process, but a lot of demos will like run to the point and like try and be the one capping it, stuff like that, or just play it really, really close. When like in a last push, if I can just sit sticky length away from the point, then I can det my stickies and get a kill on the point, and we win, right? Like, it's very easy. I don't need to be super close where the player focusing my teammate on point can also be shooting at me, right? So yeah, by being able to deal effective damage from a larger range, you're also opening yourself up to a wider variety of positioning. And when positioning matters less for the amount of damage that you're dealing, because you can deal damage from like further away from like more passive but safer positions, then you are able to play in very safe positions and stay alive and things like that. Okay, what's next? Next is ammo consumption. So yeah, just like spewing ammo without much thought is very much its own thing, but I do think that having the habit of at least charging your sticks a bit, thinking about, like, it makes you think about what you're actually shooting at as you're shooting it, right? Especially in the case where stickies are being very charged. I think it's a good habit to just kind of be passively charging sticks, right? Just having, if you don't know what you're going to shoot at yet, just have stickies charged. Okay, I'll shoot over there, right? I see a player up there. Or I'm shooting, okay, I don't see anything. Now it's really charged. I'll shoot at the med. Why not? Something like that. It actually lets you think about what you're doing in a way that will help you get more out of fewer stickies, I think. Because, in my opinion, from what I've seen, most of the time that demos are just kind of vomiting ammo, it's more absent-minded of, like, there's a lot of players on my screen, so neurons are just firing to, like, click a lot, right? But it ends up being less effective, or just as effective as you could be with better placed shots while using less ammo. Yeah, so simple one there as well. And then what What was last? Last was those reload intervals, which is really important. It's like its own concept, to be honest. Like a really important thing for demos to focus on, because in those team fights, again, if you can anticipate that a fight will need your contribution more so in the future than it does right now, then finding the time to reload will make you more impactful when it matters more, right? And I think that actually taking the time to think about your shots and charging those sticks is going to help you find reload intervals more as well. And this kind of ties into everything as well, again, kind of with that oneness, because when you find yourself playing better positioning, well, let's do mid for an example. If I'm like pushed way up here, this is a place that you might push up to if you like your soldiers are bombing and you're trying to cross and like do a bunch of damage, stuff like that. But if I'm playing way up here and I, for example, well, yeah, I'm just playing up here in a situation where it doesn't make sense. I'm eating shit. I'm just getting attacked from all sides. I'm just trying to stay alive. I'm not going to be finding times to reload ammo if the next shot is the one I need to survive, right? You just don't have so much, you have no breathing room, so you just aren't affording yourself the opportunity to even think about, like, should I be reloading here or not? You're just full survival mode. Compared to a more comfortable standard position, where if there's nothing super enticing, okay, I'll just reload a little bit. Rather than, like, be supercharging that sticky, which you could also be doing if, like, your ammo's fine. Oh, that was a weird... stuck up there. Rather than, like, that supercharged sticky, which, again, you could also do. Okay, boom. I've reloaded twice, now there's a guy on height for me to shoot at. Very, very simple stuff. And it does go a long way in kind of increasing your effectiveness. And I was making a point there. The point I was making is that the combination of not having to be fighting for your life in these dire situations and being able to actually play the safer positioning means you're just naturally going to feel more breathing room with which you can reload. It's going to come much more naturally. But, again, these all sort of tie together with being able to actually effectively increase your range as demo by just those slight charges and actually flicking the stickies. Like, I can hit pack here. That one missed, but yeah, barely charged. And I don't even necessarily need to look at it either. I just need to see from the position I'm at, a player might be walking over there. I can hit that. That one fell short. But you get the idea. So yeah, this all kind of ties together, just being able to do those, well, just being able to hit those midder ranged stickies more comfortably is going to unlock a lot of potential for demo, because you're not only going to be able to play safer and stay alive better and trade damage more favorably because you're playing good positioning while still being able to hit wherever the enemy's standing, but you're also going to be more mindful of the shots you're taking and more mindful of the ammo you have, and you're just going to feel more breathing room, you're going to feel more comfortable, and yeah, everything is going to be better. So yeah, I think that's all I have for the topic. I'm actually doing light editing for this video, so I think that deserves a subscription if you aren't subscribed, or like the video, or do any of the algorithmically beneficial things. But yeah, hopefully that was useful. Something I talk about all the time. I'm sure it's like something I've talked about in accessory to other videos and whatnot, but I figured it warranted its own topic. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed, and see y'all later.